And as stated before, my name is Carrie Moy, and I'm the Program Associate here at ASSISTments. Prior to this role, I taught middle school math, so I love seeing a 7th and 8th grade teacher here with us. I taught middle school math for 12 years in Chicago, and I used the Open Up curriculum along with ASSISTments. And so that's where I really found that it changed my classroom practice by using ASSISTments consistently, and I just fell in love with the platform. And so I'm really excited to share it tonight with you. I'm going to go ahead and let David, my amazing chat moderator, introduce himself.
Thank you, Carrie. Again, my name is David Morrison. I'll be doing the chat moderating for you. I'm teaching math, good old Algebra 1 and Geometry at Greenwood High School. And I've been using ASSISTments for, this will be my 2nd year, my 13th year in education, and kind of wish I'd been using it all 13 years at this point, to be honest with you. So glad to have you all with us and hope you'll enjoy it as much as we do.
Thank you so much, David. So David and I are huge cheerleaders when it comes to ASSISTments and our classroom practice. And so hopefully we can convince you as well how amazing this platform is. So I'm going to start by giving you just a little bit of an overview of what ASSISTments is. And so ASSISTments is an evidence-based, free, forever free online math platform that you can use for formative assessment and data-driven instruction. It integrates seamlessly with Google Classroom, and it's easy for teachers to assign online their curriculum. And you can supplement your curriculum through like a library of content that they have available. And for me, I think the biggest thing that I loved was the immediate feedback and multiple opportunities it gave my students, because I could use that to leverage and foster their growth mindset. So they left math class just having a much stronger mindset towards math and problem solving. So how that happened essentially is through this idea of immediate feedback. So ASSISTments will give your students regular and timely immediate feedback. So students don't have to wait until the next class period or the next day to find out if they're correct. They get that immediate feedback. And so they're actually the ones driving their own learning and doing that course correction through the feedback they're getting immediately through ASSISTments. And so I'm sure you guys know, as teachers, the more autonomy we give our students, the more engaged they are in math class. And so this platform really allows that to happen. As a teacher, you get daily formative data that you can use to create these actionable steps pretty much immediately. And so you can quickly identify through the data which students are ready for challenges and which students might need intervention and support. So if you don't believe me, like I said before, ASSISTments is a research-proven tool, and it's one of 3 middle school math interventions with a Tier 1 rating for evidence for ESSA. And a lot of different research studies, but it's basically proven through like randomized control studies that have shown that classrooms that use ASSISTments versus classrooms that do not actually show more learning, 75% more learning in classrooms that use ASSISTments. And I think that's so important, thinking about narrowing the achievement gap and especially addressing any unfinished learning from the previous year. And David and I are only a few of the 20,000 different teachers in the US that use ASSISTments, and it just makes teaching so much easier, as David and I both will attest. You don't need to scour the internet for practice problems because you have a content of library to pull from, and I'm going to show you that today, as well as you can use that data to make actionable, informed decisions when it comes to helping support your students. And students then get that immediate feedback and they don't get stuck in a frustration for very long. So let me tell you a little bit about a typical teacher routine. And so a typical teacher routine is that you would maybe assign content, send home a worksheet or something for students to do. The students would work on that assignment. So either maybe it's online or it's on a piece of paper, they're working on that assignment at home. Then they come the next day and turn it in, and then you as the teacher would then have to grade it. And then after grading it, you could look at the data and then inform instruction. Now, ASSISTments is that same routine, but it's just enhanced. And what I mean by enhanced is when you assign content, you can assign it online from a content library that's full of different curricula and problems that you can choose from. Your students, when they're doing the assignment, get immediate feedback as they complete the assignment. And so they're getting that immediate corrective feedback that they can use towards driving their own learning. Then you as the teacher, instead of grading lots of papers, you actually get a data report right away that you can actually look at for specific trends. And when you can use these trends to then create steps for your lesson the very next day, and you can use this data with students as well. And so hopefully I've convinced you to stay and join us in creating an account with Google Classroom if you haven't yet. And so I'm going to walk you through this. And if you are authorized already as a teacher in your Google Class or your school's G Suite, this will be a very easy process because you'll automatically be tagged as a teacher in Assistments. If you are not able to set that up, we're actually able to, as a team, manually verify you. And so if you need and run into any trouble like assigning or anything like that, please reach out to us at contact@assistments.com and we'll be able to help you out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly demo how to create an account. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my teacher view here and show you how you can sign up for an account if you don't yet already have one. And so you're going to go to our website, assistments.org, and you're going to click this sign up button. When you're asked to sign up, you're going to choose Google because you're here for Google Classroom and Assistments Google Classroom and click integration. You're going to go ahead and click Google Classroom and click choose your teacher account. And then you're going to be brought into our content library. You'll know you've signed in because you'll notice your name in the top right-hand corner. Since this session is interactive, I'm going to give you a few minutes right now to go ahead and sign in to your Assistments account. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Brian, for typing that in. I think the nerves got the best of me here. So it's contact@assistments.org if you need access to a verified teacher account. So if you have trouble assigning problems or anything like that, just please feel free to reach out to us. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started now by talking you through each of the steps in the process. And so I know we talked about signing in right now, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what's available in our content library now. So step one, teacher assigns content from an online library. So I'm going to follow James here, and James Wilson is a 7th grade math teacher and using Assistments for the first time. So we're going to consider what he needs to do to really get started. And the first thing is really finding the content he wants to assign from our content library. What I mean by that is we have a lot of content available in our library. So we have all the open education resources and the curriculum. So the Kendall Hunt Illustrative Mathematics, we have grades 1 through high school available, as well as the Open Up High School. I know that's a new curriculum, but we have 6 through 8 available. And we have the Eureka Engage New York curriculum, as well as the Utah School Math Project curriculum. And when I say that, we have everything that you would see in your curriculum is mirrored in Assistments as well. And so, for example, if you wanted to assign from Open Up a unit assessment, you can actually do that through Assistments. And if you're looking for access to any of the assessments, you can actually reach out to contact@assistments.org, and they'd be happy to give you access to any of the illustrative mathematics or Open Up resource assessment materials. We also have different curriculum aligned materials. We have Jump Math available, as well as Eureka Fluency supports for grades 6 through 8. And in partnership with the Louisiana Department of Education, we now have Eureka aligned diagnostic materials that you can use to assign to students. Other curricula that we have available to you as well is our in-house. And so we've created a couple in-house built content here. We have skill builders and problem solving tasks. Both of those are by grade level and Common Course aligned standards, and you can use them to provide fluency practice as well as supplemental support for students. Skill builders are basically a pool of questions aligned to a specific standard that students would receive randomly, and they would, it's mastery based, which means that students are being assessed on a single standard, and they demonstrate mastery when they've answered 3 questions correctly in a row on the first try. And so that's great if you are doing practice around a specific standard and you wanted to check with that. See, we also have release state tests. These are great if you are going to be assigning or wanting students to practice any testing, like with state tests and the problems available there for students. So I'm going to actually really demo really quickly what you're going to see in our content library.
Carrie, while you're pulling up, got a question in the chat real quick. Just want to let everybody know this is just for math, correct? That's all we got on assessments, correct?
Yes, yeah, this is so Assessments is a math platform, and so the content we have is through math specifically. All right, so taking a look here, I want to sort of demo different ways to browse our content library. And so the first way is to actually just browse the content. You're going to see each individual folder by curriculum. And when you click into the curriculum, you're going to see that it's organized by grade level, and then in the grade level by unit, and in the unit by lesson. And within that lesson, you're going to see that it mirrors whatever is in the curriculum. So if there's practice problems, you'll see them, student-facing tasks, and then cool downs. The other way that you can assign content or find content is through a search by standard. And so we have the ability here to type in a specific standard or a topic that you are covering, and you can click on that. And what that will do is pull up everything in our content library associated with that specific standard or that specific topic. You'll notice I have 113 different problems here. You can actually filter that by specific curriculum if you would like. So if you want to find specifically in a type of curriculum, and then you'll also see here that we have skill builders that are tagged with that specific topic or content standard. So I know that was a lot of information, so I'm going to walk through it one more time so you have and give you an opportunity to sort of explore our different content. So when you go to assistments.org, you have the ability to click Find and Assign. That's where you're going to be able to choose either browsing our content by our curriculum, and you can select specific problems to assign. I will show you that in a minute, as well as how to assign it to your class immediately and how to save it to your problem sets and the different options available to teachers. Right now, I just want you to be able to have a chance to explore our curriculum that's available. And so the other way you can sort of explore what's available is by Common Core standard or a specific keyword. And so when you do that, you're going to be able to see lots of different examples, and you can choose specific problems that you want to assign. And I will show you that in just a minute. But since it was a lot of information, I want to give you a chance to just explore our content library. And so I'm going to give you just a few minutes now to go ahead and go to assistments.org and click on Find and Assign. And then share any wonderings or questions you may have in the chat as you are exploring. Okay, David, do we have any questions in the chat coming up about content?
No questions on content. I think we're all squared away.
Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead and go back to checking in on James. James is going to use the Open Up Resources curriculum. So he wants to make the most, use assessments to make the most of that curriculum. And so now he really needs to know how to assign the content. I'm going to go ahead and go into my demo here. And so a couple of different things that you can choose from when you are assigning content. If you're searching by standard and maybe creating your own or wanting to create some specific problem sets for supplemental, or you're looking ahead, you can actually choose specific problems by clicking on this box. When you choose these specific problems, you can either assign to your class immediately, or you can click this little down arrow. And when you do that, you can actually choose to save to your problem sets. What happens with that is, let's say you're doing some advanced planning and you want to create an assignment for Thursday, right? You can actually create that assignment. There we go. And go ahead and create it and save it to your problem sets. What you'll notice then is under My Problems, you can scroll through, there's a lot here, but you can see the one that you have created. And so from here, you can choose to assign at a later time. So by selecting all of them, or maybe you decide, you know what, my students just need one of them, and then assigning immediately. So there's lots of different ways you can customize your problem sets by saving them to your problem sets. And you can add problems once you've started. There's lots of flexibility here. The other way that you can assign content is to assign it immediately to your students. And so you can do that through picking your curriculum. And let's say you wanted to choose specific questions. Here it has all of the problems selected. I'm actually going to choose very specific ones that I want to assign to my students right away. And so I'm going to go ahead and scroll through the different problems and choose the ones that I would like to assign. From there, you're going to click Assign to Class. When you do that, you're going to get a little pop-up here that allows you to change the name of the assignment if you would like. And you can choose your LMS that you'd like to assign to. In this case, we're going to go ahead and assign to Google Classroom. Now, if you are using this for the first time this year, you're going to want to import and sync first. So what I mean by that is if you're not seeing your classes, you'll want to import them from Google Classroom before you begin. If you are seeing your classes, but maybe something has changed along the way or students have signed up late, you're going to want to go ahead and click Synchronize for your classes. Once you're there, you can actually choose a specific class to assign to. So you have the option, you can assign to multiple classes at once, or you can just assign to one of your classes. I'm going to talk about test mode in a little bit, but this is an opportunity for you to turn on if you would like students to do a summative assessment. And so in this case, I want it to be formative because I feel like students get the most growth mindset development and understanding of math when they get that immediate feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it off. And I have the option now to assign a problem order. Okay, what I mean by that is linear means that it will show up for students the way I have set it up in the problem set. So whatever first problem I have will be the first one students see. Random order allows basically for each student to get a different random order of problems. And then student choice, I'll show you an example in a second, but it's basically where students will have the entire problem set available to them at first, and they can choose which problem to go into. I do want to note that once they choose a problem to start, they do need to finish that problem before they're able to make another choice. So I'm going to go ahead and assign mine in linear order. In this case, you have the option for a release date and time. Okay, I'm going to give you a little Google Classroom tip here with the release date in a little bit, but I want you to note that you can set the release date to be in the future, and then the due date. So with the due date, students are able to complete the assignment after it's been due, but you will see in the report how many days late the student completed the assignment. And so you'll be able to see those. If you don't have a release date, it'll be assigned to students immediately. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that immediately right now. And so when that's done, that'll show up in my Google Classroom assignment for my students, as well as me on the teacher end. All right, so I'm going to quickly review those steps. Was there a question in the chat? Thought I noticed something.
Yes, I was just waiting for a good time to ask it. Just want to double check. Are students able to draw on charts, or do they have to take and upload pictures?
Oh, well, I can show you that in a little bit. That is actually a feature that is coming out very soon.
Oh, sweet.
In terms of allowing this draw function, but I can show you what we have currently in the system when we talk about the student view. But yes, if you, just as a side note, if you want to join if you happen to have Facebook or any social media and following us on Twitter or joining our Facebook group, those will be the areas we sort of announce first, any new updates that are ready to come out. All right, so I just want to recap what I just demoed so that you have the ability to find any problems that you would like in our content library and create a custom problem set for that. And you do that by clicking that down arrow and then saving to problem sets. You can name and save your problem sets or add to any existing problem sets as well. So add, modify, reorder, a lot of that gives you that flexibility in the saved problem sets. When you're ready to assign, you can change the name of the assignment. You can select one or multiple classes that you want to assign to. You can also choose whether or not to have linear, random order, or student choice. And I will talk about test mode in a little bit. You'll notice that test mode isn't available in this image, and I'll talk about why in just a few minutes. You can select your LMS, which in this case will be Google Classroom, and then a release and due date. Both are optional. If you don't choose a release date, it will be something that will come out. Did want to show you quickly, I know I mentioned student choice as an option. This is what it looks like on the student end. We'll dive more into the student view in just a second. But with the student view, students actually get the choice of the order they would like to do the problem. So they'll get an image like this and they can choose which problem they'd like to start on. But once they enter into a problem, they do need to finish it before moving on. All right, I know I teased this a couple different times, but I want to talk specifically about test mode. And so you'll notice I highlighted that toggle, and I'll show you in a minute in a demo how you can have that available to you. But this is an option where you can choose to assign a problem set in formative or test mode. Test mode is a feature that is currently enabled in your account through your settings. And so I'll show that in an upcoming demo. The key differences between test mode and formative mode is that students in test mode are not going to get that immediate feedback. So when I talk about it in the next section where students get that immediate feedback and are given multiple chances, they'll be able to see hints and explanations or a show answer button. That's not available at all in test mode. Okay, so test mode is really around like maybe if you're giving a exit ticket or a unit assessment and you'd like it to be summative. So that's kind of where it would use for. If you need access to any of the assessments in Open Up or Illustrative Math, please feel free to email us at contact.assistments.org, and we'd be happy to give you access to any of those assessments. So I'm going to quickly show you right now how to enable test mode in your account. So when you're here ready to sort of assign your problems, you're going to go to the top right-hand corner where it says your name. When you click on that, you're going to click on settings. Under settings on the right-hand side are feature settings. When you click on feature settings, you can then enable test mode if you would like, or enable student supports. Later in the next section, I'm going to talk about what student supports are, but this is where you would enable them if you would like to have them. You'll want to save your changes. And then when you do, if you'll notice now, when you try to assign, you'll notice that test mode now has appeared for you, and you can turn that on if you would like it to be a summative assessment, or you can have it off for that formative immediate feedback for students. All right. So again, you can enable test mode by going to your settings, and then you want to go to feature settings and then turning on the test mode. Don't forget to save your changes. to make sure you have it. And you'll notice you'll be in test mode because that toggle will show up now. So you'll notice it now because test mode was enabled on this account, and you can turn it on or off. Blue means that it is in test mode. So I know that was a lot of information, and I want to give you an opportunity to sort of explore and possibly either turn on test mode for yourself or to explore our content library and create a custom problem set that you can save for later. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some time right now to explore and do that. I'm going to set my timer here and give you just 3 minutes now to sort of process all of that information and test it out on your own. Feel free to, again, use the chat if you have any questions. All right. Hopefully you've finished up and gotten a chance to sort of explore. David, were there any questions in the chat that I can address at this time?
No, ma'am. Seems clear.
Okay, well, I'm going to show you then a little bit of some Google Classroom tips here. And so I'm going to show you kind of how you might be able to assign assessments like for small groups and tips like that. So I'm going to go ahead and share. Oops, should give you this one here. So in your teacher account, this is where that tip of doing a future date sort of helps here. So let's say you assign assessments in the future. You'll notice in your account, it'll be kind of a grayed out because it's assigned for the future. And in that case, you can actually go into your LMS and click edit. When you do, you could actually select specific students that you want to see that assignment. And so this is great. You can select specific students if you want to assign that problem set you've created to a very specific group of students for extra practice. You can go ahead and do it this way. That way, not all students will see it. And then the ones that have been assigned it will be able to go in and have that extra practice that you've assigned for them. Another quick tip is that you can actually click on this link here. And when you click on that link, you can copy that link address. And so when you copy that link address, you can actually provide students that link in the centralized document so that they can just go in and work on the assignment without having to go into Google Classroom first. And so those are a couple of little tricks to sort of show you that you can use with Google Classroom integration and assessments. I did want to note though, like as you're assigning to specific subgroups or copying and pasting links, that when you copy and paste a link, it is specific to the class and roster. So students who are not in the class for which the link was created for are going to actually receive an error screen. So I just want to note that. All right, I want to leave any time for questions. So Brian, do we have, or David, are we having any questions in the chat right now?
No, ma'am, still all clear.
Okay, great. Feel free again if you have any questions or comments, or feel free to use that chat. I want to make sure you're getting the most out of this session. And I know it's a lot of information. All right, so now we've talked about the process of assigning and the different options you have as a teacher to assign content, find it, and assign it for your students. I want to talk now about the student experience. I know I've hinted at this throughout, and so I want to give you a chance to sort of dive into the student experience. James, like you, probably wants to know what this looks like on the student end and how he can support his students to create a positive culture around the platform. So I know I just gave you a chance to explore, but I am going to give you another chance here now to explore. And so in a few minutes, David is going to put in a link to an assignment report. I'm going to go ahead and demo this live, and then I'll leave the directions up on the screen so that you can follow them. But you're going to get an assignment when you click on that link, new user part 1 demo problem set, and you're going to notice that you're in your teacher view. Here, you're going to click on these 3 dots on the side, and you're going to preview as a student. Okay, and so when you click preview the problem set as a student, it'll actually pull you in to what it will look like for a student. Okay, when you want to preview, let's say you want to preview a specific problem for students, you can actually click on the individual problem and view the problem as a student. Or in this case, I do want you to preview the entire problem set as a student. So I believe it's the second link at .assistments.org as a demo to kind of pull you in. So here's the directions again. And as you're going through, I would love for you to share in the chat what are some noticings or questions as you put on your student hat here that you're noticing as you're going through that assignment. So I'm going to give you a few minutes now to explore. Thank you for those of you putting your noticings and wonderings in the chat. I'd love to know how are you feeling about the student experience? What do you notice that will happen for students? What are some wonderings that you have? What are some questions?
Yeah, Carrie, I had a question there. Just want to clarify. I know you talked about the differences between linear and the other settings that we have. Students cannot skip once they've selected a problem, correct?
No, yeah. Once you've started a problem, you do have to answer. And we're going to talk a little bit about some different options for students in that situation and what you see as a teacher on your end in the data report. And so once you have a question in front of you, you do need to complete that question before moving to the next. I'm going to give you just a couple more minutes here to go through that demo, and then I'd like to show you on the student end what it will look like. About 1 more minute now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how students actually access the assignment. And I'm going to go in and demo one more time how it will look on this for the student side. So once you've assigned it into Google Classroom, you're going to notice the assignment I just made is here. It'll show up in the stream as well as in the classwork section, depending on how you have your Google Classroom set up. So once students open up the assignment, they'll can click to access the assignment. If this is the first time they're signing in, they'll be asked to authorize, the same as what happened for you the very first time you signed in. But other than that, they'll be able to be brought into the assignment right away. And you'll notice it's one question at a time for the student view. And so when they answer the problem, let's say they're going to see that one question at a time, and they're going to go ahead and submit their answer. They're going to get that immediate feedback right away that they're correct. And you can see that they get the green check mark and their progress bar here is at the full length. Let's say they're ready to go to the next problem and they're not quite sure and they type in an answer. They're going to get that corrective feedback right away. And then they're able to go back to where their work was and take a look at what it is that they actually answered. You're going to notice too that their progress bar goes down a little bit. This is not a score or a percentage that we want you to use in the grade book. It's really more around that formative information for both you and your students that, you know, they were able to essentially get it correct eventually by relooking at their data. They didn't get it right away, but they were able to look at their information and get it right. And so that's the same kind of thing here. Or students might be able to enter in an answer, and if they're still not totally sure, you can notice that their progress bar goes down. After a few attempts, they have as many attempts as they want, so they can continue to keep going. And you'll notice that the progress bar doesn't necessarily change, but you as a teacher are going to actually be able to see all of their individual attempts. And we'll talk more about that in the data analysis part, so the next step. But let's say they're like, okay, I'm actually going to sit down and figure out what I did incorrectly. Oh, now I've got the right answer. Notice how they're still marked as getting it correct eventually. And like we said, there is an option for open response. And I know there are a few updates to this open response coming very soon. And so I know there's in the chat, we mentioned some of the new features that will happen, including drawing, being able to quickly insert a photo and things like that. But as of right now, with our open responses, students can type their answer in here. They can create a table if they would like to show information. I noticed there's some high school teachers here. If you have students doing equations and want availability of math type, we do have a math type button. So students are able to type in and use that math type information. And then entering in a photo as well. And so here we have a little picture icon that students can click, and they will be able to choose the source from their computer and then insert a photo. So lots of different options here with the open response and more to come very, very soon. And so once students submit an answer, notice how it's not graded right away. This is an opportunity for you as a teacher to go see their explanation and their work, and then also provide them feedback. And so students will be able to see the feedback that you provide them in the program once you've graded it and taken a look at it. Let's say students are ready for that next problem and they start answering. And so this is where it says that you're not able to keep going. So I know somebody noticed, well, wait a second, once a student starts a problem, they're not really able to move on. And yes, that is true. But we do have an option for students because we don't want them to get frustrated and stuck for a very long time. So that's where the show answer button comes into play. And again, it's a lot of conversations with your students. How to use that button, why it's there is really important. But we don't want students to get stuck. So they have the opportunity to show answer. And then that way they can enter the correct answer and move on. You as a teacher will get to see who had to click the show answer button, how many times and when they click the show answer button. So you do get all of that information that you can use very quickly to have those conversations with students and really help develop that growth mindset for them around math. So then they can submit the answer and move on with the assignment. Once they finish the assignment, it's going to actually exit and give them a student report. Okay, there's lots of information available here for students in their student report, and they'll always have access to this by going back into their Google Classroom assignment and clicking on that assignment again. This is also where they'll be able to look at any feedback you leave for them. They'll re-click into the assignment. In the student report, they can hover over the questions and see the specific question. They can see their average score as well as their class's average score. We have heard from teachers that they want the ability to hide this, and that is something that's hopefully coming very soon as well. And so again, when I ask you to do the feedback at the end, we really do listen to our teachers here. And so for the student report, in the open response questions, notice this is ungraded. Once you as a teacher have graded it, students will see that in blue on their end. All right, so a quick recap of all of that information here. And so students are going to enter into their LMS, either in the classwork or stream, to be able to see the assignment and click into it. They're going to get immediate feedback as they go through, and they're going to see one question at a time and then be able to submit their work. They're going to get that corrective feedback that they can use to self-correct if any errors that they have in their work. And then so that students don't get stuck on a question, they are able to hit that show answer button to move on. Like I said, this show answer button will disappear if you are using it as a test mode. Okay, like I mentioned earlier. And if you are using it in test mode, this feedback will not be available to students either. Okay, and so I mentioned earlier that you can turn on student supports, and I wanted to talk a little bit about student supports as well and what those are. So student supports are currently available for grades 6 through 8 in our open source curricula. So Illustrative Math, Eureka and Engage, Open Up Resources, Utah Math. And if this is enabled in your account, and student supports are available in that curriculum and in that grade level, your students are actually going to see hints and explanations. They're going to be able to see these hints and explanations to help them progress through that problem set. And you'll also be able to see in your report whether or not students had to click that hint button. And then finally, we've got our student assignment report where students are able to review the problem, see their individual score as well as the class average score. And then notice how here there's a little blue comment. If a teacher has left a comment to their open response questions, students are able to see that. I think it's a great little tip in Google Classroom to let students know that you have left them feedback so that they know to go back and check that assignment. All right, I know that was a lot of information. Are there any questions at this time in the chat that I can answer?
Currently looking clear at the moment.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to talk about the data. Now the data report is a lot, and I'm just going to do a quick dive into data because we have a part 2 that is going to give you a lot more information when it comes to data. And so I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how to access the report in both Google Classroom and in Assessments, and then how you can interpret that data. So there are 2 ways that you can access your assignment report. The first way is through your LMS. And so in Google Classroom, when you have actually assigned the report, you can click on that and it'll bring you into the assignment report. So here, if I wanted to see my assignment report, I could click in and open the assignment report, okay, once I've signed in. The other way that I can do it is through my assignments here. And so I'm in the assessments interface and I'm clicking on my assignments. Here I'm able to sort by class in any of the assignments that I've assigned, its status, and then the release date. And so here I'm going to go ahead and find mine, click on it, and I can get a quick view of 9 out of the 11 students have completed it. There were 5 problems in it, as well as the standards that were available in that problem set. When I click on View Report here, take a minute to load. It usually does not take this long to load. And for some reason, I got signed out. So give me 1 second to sign back in. There we go. All right. And so when you get into this assignment report, this is what you're going to see. So the first one here is our assignment details, and you're going to be able to see the student progress cards. So you can see the number of students who have not started and which students were in progress and those that are completed. You're going to get a performance summary, and you can see students that got it correct right away, so that green check mark, versus correct eventually. So either they had a couple different attempts to get that, and this is where you can actually see students who had to click show answer. They're marked in this nice kind of purplish red color here. And so that means that these incorrect students got it incorrect and had to click the show answer. You're able to then click on problems here to sort of explore specifically what the problem was, the correct answers, and the score breakdown. You'll see that in 2 locations, here and here. You get the problem average of each individual problem, and so you can actually see the overall class average in each individual problem, how students did. You have a scoring guide available, so if you're not quite sure what these bubbles and these symbols mean, you can click the scoring rubric. And you can hide any columns that you would like. So hiding student names, showing average scores. And then this is where you're going to be able to click and do open response questions. I know I'm moving through this very quickly, but I really do hope you guys come to our part 2 where we're going to dive into how to analyze this data report. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of all of the information available in the report. And so you get that in 2 locations. Like I said, you can click right into your LMS and get that assignment report, or you can go to My Assignments and get that view. You're going to get the student progress cards to see who started it right away, as well as the detailed report where you can see hints and time spent on the assignment. David just put in a link if you want to explore that on your own very quickly. But there are common wrong answers that you can get, student individual scores, how they did, as well as like number of attempts. It's a lot of information, and I want to quickly show you our standards report as well. And so I know I mentioned earlier that you get to see standards in the problem. It's because we have a new standards report here. Again, dive in more in part 2, but you can see each individual standard here, as well as the number of problems in each standard. So when you click on that side, problems, standard view. And so you can see the number of problems aligned and then the average for student scores in each standard. So again, lots of information there for you to sort of look at, but high level is class average gives you a whole class understanding. Problem average can let you know which problems you might want to go over with the entire class. Common wrong answers are a great way to sort of dive into the report and see the common wrong answers, address common misconceptions as a whole class. And then you can see the individual score where you might need to have a conversation with a student, or again, small group information. I'm going to pass this because I want to make sure I want to honor your time today. And so again, part 2 will dive into this much more, but I want to make sure to talk quickly about setting up your students for success, because I promised you resources and I want to make sure you have them. And so if maybe you're starting to get comfortable with the platform and all of the options, and now you want to introduce it to your students, I highly recommend that you share with them the tutorial of how to actually get set up in Google Classroom. It walks them through how to connect their account. And assigning a low stakes problem. We have a lot of student practice assignments, and when you get this deck, you can click on that assignment directly. But practice assignments that you can assign to students just to get them used to submitting an answer, the show answer button, how their progress bar goes down, and all of that information. It's great to also help them understand how to answer those open response questions. So we have a tutorial available for that. And then choosing an entry point, something like an exit ticket as you start, or a warm up, or just assigning practice problems once a week, just to really get you and your students into that consistent routine of using assessments and the data available in it. And again, it's a formative assessment tool. So the more you reward their attempt, the more likely this tool is going to help you and help them develop that growth mindset. So it really is around the practice and not the grade. And so keeping in mind that percentage is not something we really want you to use directly, but use interpretively to really help your students understand their growth areas when it comes to math. All right, tips for using Google Classroom. Like I said earlier, you can always add a comment. And so this is similar to what your LMS is. Once you've graded, you can add a quick comment, or you can email your students. All of those things work seamlessly with assessments. You can embed instructional videos along with the assignment, so the students can watch the video and work on the assignment simultaneously. And you can always provide helpful instructions for students to make sure they're very clear of how they can do the assignment and how they can do the assignment. All right, wrapping up and next steps. So hopefully at the by today, you have an account created, you know how to create an assignment, and you know what the student experience is like. I know we just touched upon using data to assess class performance, but really looking at just the class average and the problem data can be really helpful in terms of which problems you want to choose to go over the next day in class. And again, we'll dive into that in part 2 very heavily. So David, if you will link part 2 webinar sign up for our participants, that'd be great. And then hopefully you've got some tips for getting started as well. All right, I am going to ask you to now click on the link that David is going to put in the chat in 1 second. It is an Airtable link. This is a 1-minute survey here. Today is the 7th, and it's new user part 1, Google Classroom. And so I'm going to ask you to fill out that survey, because again, we really use teacher feedback here at Assessments, and it'd be great to get your feedback on this presentation, as well as the platform itself, what you loved about it, what you're excited to try. So I'm going to give you a few minutes right now to do that.
And while they're filling that out, Carrie, we had a question there asking about PD hours. Is there a way for them to get a certificate of any kind to verify that they attended and things like that to get credit for professional development?
Oh, that's a very good question. Brian, do you have an answer to that?
Repeat the question.
So the question, chat, is, will we get a certificate for hours for professional development hours for this webinar today?
At this time, we don't give those out in general. However, if you reach out to contact@assessments.org, we can typically provide you with that documentation.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. Needed that clarity for myself. All right, So as you guys continue to fill out that survey, and again, thank you so much for filling that out. I just wanted to highlight again, I did mention part 2, but it is September 14th at 6:30 p.m. So Tuesday, September 14th, and an opportunity to really dive into that data report and use it effectively with students. And so we also have upcoming webinars, implementation challenges that we have seen over and over again in our solutions for making sure your students are able to use Assessments with Success. A new user part 3 really focused on implementation and skill builders. All of these links are available for you to sign up in a follow-up email. We also have our new user resources on our website in case you run into any trouble and things like that. You can always reach out to our help center or our email contact@assessments.org. And then stay in touch. Like I said, our Facebook group, our social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our email newsletter will provide you a lot of the new updates that are coming up soon. And so thank you so much, everyone, for coming to our session today. I really do appreciate it and hope you got all of your questions as much answered as possible when it came to getting started with the basics of assessments. Thank you everyone so much. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds to fill out that survey for us in the error table, and then I will close the room. But thank you again so much. Really appreciate it.